Alright, so today I am going to be giving you my Green Lantern pitch. Now, the more I started working on a hypothetical Green Lantern movie idea, the more ideas kept coming to me. There are many Green Lantern films that I would have an idea of making, but I'm going to go with the one that I have been thinking about and working on for the past couple weeks. So before we get into it, if you haven't seen them yet, or if you are new to my channel, I have made a playlist where you can go watch all my other DC movie pitches, my ideas for other films. I have 4 of them so far. The playlist link will be in the description below. So my Green Lantern film is obviously following up where we left off from World's Finest. In World's Finest, I laid out a little Easter egg about Ferris Fields. It's when Batman goes to attack LexCorp, and just before attacking LexCorp, he hears some bodyguards or security guards talking about an event that happened in Ferris Fields from a couple weeks ago. We will now see that event play out. So John Stewart works for Ferris Fields. He is an architect with a very brilliant and creative mind. At Ferris Fields, he has been working on some sort of military design. I don't really have anything definite on what he's working on. Could be a new tank, could be a new jet, could be anything. But the one idea I do have is that maybe Ferris Fields was contracted to make something for Wayne Enterprises or LexCorp just to give a little more added touch to this connected universe. It doesn't really need to mean anything in the end of the day, but we all just know that all these worlds are combining. If I were actually making this movie, I may give maybe 5 to 10 minutes of an origin opening on where John's life began and how he got to where he is today, and why the events that are about to follow make him so important to the story and the Green Lantern world. So while working one night on this new architectural design, above Ferris Fields comes crashing down 2 lanterns onto the facility airstrip. It is Green Lantern and a Red Lantern, Atrocitus, having a fierce battle, causing destruction all over the place on Ferris airfields. The strip is getting decimated. Facilities and buildings within Ferris Fields are getting torn and ripped apart. Hal is trying to stop Atrocitus from causing any more damage and potentially fleeing anywhere else across Earth. While the destruction of Ferris Fields is ongoing, John has taken it upon himself. He's sacrificing himself to get everybody out of the building. Well, the interesting thing is just before Hal Jordan's Green Lantern and Atrocitus entered Ferris Fields, in space above Earth, when they were fighting, there was another Green Lantern with Hal Jordan. Now, I'm not fully decided if I want to make this lantern a little more important or if I would make this lantern a throwaway lantern. It doesn't really matter right now, but that decision might kick in sometime in the future. So as Atrocitus kills that second Green Lantern, the ring flies off the person's finger, and it already has its next host in mind, so it starts flying towards the direction. Well, the Guardians of Oa have always had John Stewart in mind. They have been watching John since he was a kid. They knew John was going to be a Green Lantern one day. They were just waiting for the right moment to give him that power and that responsibility. The Owens decide to send some sort of signal, a message to that particular ring to reroute its course to John Stewart instead of its already pre-programmed host it was supposed to go to. So while Hal is fighting Atrocitus in the middle of Ferris Field's airstrip, the ring shoots down into the facility. It's bobbing and weaving between all the rubble and the explosions, and it finally comes face to face with John Stewart. In all the commotion, John looks at this thing and goes like, what the hell is this? And he's trying to move around it to get to other people in need of help, but the ring keeps putting itself in front of John wherever it goes. John finally thinks to himself, okay, maybe I should grab this thing. And just before he could grab the ring moves and just places itself on his finger. All of a sudden, the Green Lantern costume starts to emerge on John. John is like in disbelief. I can't believe this is happening right now. When he's looking at the ring, he makes a fist. Not even thinking about it, he kind of clenches his fist a bit, and a ray of green light shoots up into the sky, and he's like, holy crap, this is unbelievable. So he starts to think to himself, I wonder if I can move rubble off of these people who are in dire need. And he starts picking up rubble off of people, dragging them up from underneath things, and really helping many more people than just one at a time. So while Jon Stewart's creativity with the ring is already off the charts, he's creating and doing things with the ring that even some experienced lanterns can't do. Hal is still fighting Atrocitus. Hal is not giving Atrocitus any chance to do anything or even a second to breathe. So for one moment, Atrocitus gets one big blow on Hal, which sends him flying. And in that brief moment he scans the ground. The ring kind of acts as an X-ray where he starts to look at the soil and even beneath that into the earth to try and find something. Atrocitus knows he's not going to have much time to do anything, so he roars in anger and says, I will be back, I will find it. And he booms straight up into space, disappears, and Hal just lets him go because the danger to this sector is over for now. So Hal, now looking around, seeing the destruction, and realizing that this could get worse if Atrocitus comes back, he needs to go back to Oa to warn the Guardians. So just before he leaves, he notices in the distance a ray of green, another Green Lantern in the distance helping people and clearing out the facility. Hal goes over to help this Green Lantern, and he realizes it's Jon Stewart. Both John and Hal look at each other and basically go like, buddy, is that you? And the reason I say that is because Hal and John knew each other, at least in my story, prior to becoming Green Lanterns. Essentially, the story would be Hal Jordan became Green Lantern like 2 years ago, and he just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. No one really knew what happened to him. Whereas on Earth, a lot of this superhero stuff is really starting to come out now, and more villains are starting to sprout up from those heroes. In the Green Lantern world, the history has been going on for thousands of years, and there's going to be so much that John needs to learn in a little amount of time. So really, this moment is about two friends becoming reacquainted, but now realizing that these two friends share the same ability in lantern rings. Because there would be more than one, the first Green Lantern movie would really be the heart of Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart would be a huge focus in the first film, even though this is a buddy cop movie, which I love using that term for Hal and John, but I also love the idea of having two lantern leads in one movie. In these 2 years of being a Green Lantern and barely having time to come back home to Earth, Hal would essentially explain to John that he has been through so much. There are already so many storylines that haven't played out, but maybe are ramping up to being played out in the future. So it's a lot for John to take in, and John and Hal have a lot of catching up to do. But because they do not have the luxury of that, Atrocitus is a very dangerous lantern, and Red Lanterns is not a core you want to mess with because they only get angrier and stronger from that anger. So the two lanterns return to Oa, and in that time period, Hal tries to give John a very brief introduction to the origin, to the planet, to aliens, how the Green Lantern sectors work. There's probably going to be a part where they meet Kilowog and all these other popular Green Lantern characters, even too when they stand amongst the Owens and they talk about the situation with Atrocitus. The Guardians will already know John Stewart, in which John Stewart will be like, how do you know me? And it's because they have been watching him since he was a kid. Now, this mission that Hal is on is somewhat classified. And the reason for this is because the Guardians revealed to John, Hal already knows this, thousands of years ago, if not more, a supermassive lantern battery was buried deep within Earth for safekeeping. But the way I would do it too is that batteries don't just hold a source of energy for recharging your rings, they also hold a lot of knowledge about the past. You can use them as documentation, basically. Think of Jedi and Sith holocrons in Star Wars. That's basically how lantern batteries are used as well. And Atrocitus is looking for this battery because it has very specific information that he needs. And the reason why this is a classified mission is because the Guardians want to avoid any fear and talk of a galactic scale war between Green Lanterns, Red Lanterns, and possibly getting all other colored lanterns involved all at the same time. They want to keep this quiet for as long as possible and hopefully diffuse this situation quietly as well. They entrusted this mission to Hal, but because of how much confidence they have in John, with his intense creativity, his courage, and his willpower, has already proven he's more than capable to undertake this task with Hal. Before I start to get into the other bigger details of the film, there would be a lot of things I would do considering this is your sci-fi answer to DC. You would see a ton of aliens and planets and stars and spaceships, technology, just a ton of what you would want in a sci-fi world. But also what I would do is I would keep a couple of moments in the film where John has some downtime and he can meditate. With the Green Lantern rings, you can talk to them, but if you meditate, you almost enter this astral plane type of world within the lantern ring, where you can review things, you can see into pieces of the galaxy or the universe, or you can simply train. Whoever owns a Green Lantern ring can upload anything they learn within their own ring. They can also leave things for the next host so that when they access their ring, they can learn from the previous owner. But your organic form is forever imprinted into the ring so that when the next host accesses meditation mode, they can now see you, interact with you, and talk with you. And this is where John Stewart meets Katma Tui. This ring did once belong to her, and a lot of what she learned, she imprinted into the ring for future users. This is where John starts training with her in his meditations, but also becomes strangely infatuated with her. And this is where he basically even falls in love with a training program. Even though within the ring she has emotion, she almost has feeling. But when John asks Katma, what happened to you? Where did you go? Did you die? Katma actually does not have the answers to that. She does not know what happened to herself. Just one day, she stopped having a Green Lantern ring. But don't worry, this whole storyline with Katma will 100% come into the future. So we go to Eastmalt, which is the dark demon world of the Red Lantern Corps and a couple of other species. And here we actually find that the Red Lanterns have overpowered somewhat of about 15 to 20 Green Lanterns, and Atrocitus and other lanterns have been slaughtering them, trying to learn of the battery hidden on Earth. And mind you, other secrets that the Guardians may have. Because let's be honest here, a big reason on why the Guardians want this problem solved, they themselves have not been perfect in the past. There is a chance that this battery has a lot of information that could really ruin the reputation of the Guardians. This is where you'll even see other popular Red Lanterns like Bleeze or Dexstar the cat. I would make the cat vile. That is not a cat you would see and be like, oh, I want to pet it. No, this thing will vomit Red Lantern goo on your face and melt you to death. This cat is brutal in every way. So essentially what I would do is John and Hal would infiltrate the Red Lantern base on Eastmalt. They would of course end up getting into a fight with Atrocitus, Bleeze, Dexstar, and whoever other Red Lanterns you'd want to be introduced. And Atrocitus, knowing that they would follow him back to his home planet, he would use that as a distraction. So now while Hal and John have to fight some of the Red Lanterns, he leaves with a massive group and army of Red Lanterns back to Earth. Now, after getting around some of the Red Lanterns and also freeing some of the Green Lanterns that have been captive on that planet and who haven't been killed by Atrocitus, John takes the surviving Green Lantern members to slow down Atrocitus on his pursuit to Earth, whereas Hal goes back to Oa and asks for reinforcements because Atrocitus is going in full force. Also, while on the planet, either John or Hal or both actually find some information that some of the other evil or neutral Lantern Corps, they're out there looking for other ancient devices as well, whether it be batteries that have been hidden and buried or whether they be other sources of power. And John or Hal or both of them recognizes that that's very interesting, but they don't have time to deal with that right now. So like I always do, so these videos aren't crazy long, sparing a bunch of details here, there would be a final assault on Earth, but it would be a huge space battle. But it's not like the fighting is just happening over Earth, it would be happening all over the solar system, on or above Mars, around Saturn, Neptune, just chaos everywhere. Of course, the heroes have to win, but because of how absolutely ruthless the Red Lanterns are, you would see Atrocitus and maybe a couple of other Red Lanterns kill a lot of Green Lanterns. And I have this scene in my head where the amount of Green Lanterns who die to Red Lanterns is so staggering. 20 or 25 Green Lantern rings all come off the finger of dead lanterns and swirl around space trying to locate their new host. John and Hal wouldn't defeat Atrocitus and put him into custody or anything. Atrocitus would simply flee, and he would vow that one day he will find what he's looking for. Then we would see John and Hal pretty much being praised for stopping a Red Lantern assault, and we would also see John being praised for being a newcomer with no training whatsoever who actually stood up against one of the hardest lanterns to fight. And now John has finally found his calling, he's found his purpose, he's found his place not just in the world but in the universe now. His story, along with Hal's story, is only going to get bigger. Here's how it would end. Once again, end credit scene, or if I could just simply fit it into the end of the movie. Atrocitus returns to Ismo, where he gets an incoming message from somebody very important asking him if he found it. And Atrocitus says, "No, I have not found it, but I will continue my pursuit on finding it." But what we do find out is that Atrocitus was never after a battery in the first place. He was actually looking for the anti-life equation. And this is the first appearance of Darkseid. We would see Darkseid on a holographic transmission basically saying, "Do not fail me, I will not accept failure." As the transmission ends, it is now a literal scene of Darkseid on Apokolips. Someone like Desaad approaches Darkseid and says, "My lord, blah 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 has found something that you might find of interest." And maybe it's another lantern like Larfleeze, or another big syndicate group or important group in the sci-fi world of DC that has been contracted by Darkseid to find materials for him. And maybe they find boom tube technology for Darkseid or something that Darkseid doesn't have in his utility belt that he can now have when he eventually makes it to Earth. And then we basically just see Darkseid with an evil smirk on his face, and that's where it ends. So the Green Lantern film would introduce the main threat of the DC universe being Darkseid, different types of gangs and groups, maybe other important characters to the world who aren't so important to this movie but can be for the future, and a lot of mystery and doors that can be opened in more Green Lantern projects or other DC projects in general. But anyways, everyone, that is one of the ideas I came up with for a Green Lantern film. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the idea and what are some things you would like to see in a Green Lantern movie. That is all I have for you on this one, everyone. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.